I'll start in 3, 2, 1. 12th January 2025. I witnessed the chance to meet one of the most favorite environmentalists of India, Mr. Ramachandra Guha. It happened at the APJ Kolkata Literary Fest, where he was invited to speak about his latest book, Speaking with Nature. Listening to him felt like being back in school days when it was all about Chipko Andolan of Sundar Lal Bahuguna and Chandi Prasad Bhatt's work in reviving Uttarakhand's ecology. A very good afternoon, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and the respected panel present here today. This is Anshra Jahan from Loreto College, Kolkata, and today my presentation speaks to you about the power of community-led climate solutions. But before I dive into the motion, let's pause for a second and unpack what community really means. And since most of us are Gen Zs here, let me borrow an example straight from social media. So a quick question. How many of us use Instagram? I do. Okay, great, a lot of hands up. Now, as you are aware, Instagram's broadcast channel allows creators to connect further with their audience. You may ask why a separate community was needed when there's already a follow button available on every Instagram page? Well, that is because community brings people together and it gives them a sense of belonging. From a sociological perspective, Maurice Ginsburg argued that community is not defined by geographic proximity, but by the common life shared amongst its members. It is bound by shared values, goals, and customs that shape our collective way of life. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the premise of my proposition here today, that real change in addressing climate issues comes from community-driven actions. With that said, let me return to Ramachandra Guha at the AKL Fest, where he highlighted pioneers like Mirabehn, Rabindranath Tagore, Sir Patrick Geddes, and M. Krishnan, who reshaped the Indian environmentalism. What struck me most was their focus on building the movement through community involvement, which made me reflect on the vital role communities play in protecting our nature. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have brought to you 3 climate stories from our motherland with 3 lessons we can learn from to solve our current climate issues. The first story of regenerative forest in Khamlikhurd. For generations, Khamlikhurds in Chhattisgarh collected non-timber forest produce. Almost 46.6% of their income comes from forest as compared to farming or working for wages. But soon, the forest department started to use forest for number 1, generating revenue through timber sales, and number 2, prioritizing growth-oriented models. And how did they do it? They only promoted monoculture plantation, which made the soil acidic. They introduced exotic species that were unsuited to the local environment, and they established preservation zones for tourism, which restricted the access of locals. But the Khamlikhurds were strong, and they fought back. They formed the Adivasi Shakti Sangathan, which fought against the Compensatory Forest Acts. They revived the Gram Sabha and won community forest rights over 80 hectares of land. And they organized monthly contributions from households to build on indigenous agroforestry practices. And ultimately, their efforts achieved Aichi targets 5 and 7. So what's the lesson we learn here? The story of Khamlikhurd shows that when communities stand together, even the toughest battles of climate change can be fought and won. My second story of the story of Dongria Kondhs of Niyamgiri. The Niyamgiri Hills spans across the Raigada, Koraput and Kalahandi districts of southern Odisha. The Kondhs have been smart farmers. The forest around them is like a giant natural grocery store. They extract 18 different resources from it, including fruits, seeds, mushrooms, and even leaves. This indigenous tribal community smartly uses 70% of their forest resources and sells the rest 30%, ensuring sustainability. During the rainy season, when food grains run low, they rely on forest produce. Not only this, the Dongrias do not use any chemical pesticides or fertilizers on their crops. This process saves them money, keeps the environment healthy, and makes their farming completely organic. So what's the lesson we learn here? The Dongria Kondhs show us that true sustainability lies in living with nature and never against it. My third and final story of the Tarun Bharat Sangh's water revolution. In 1975, Rajendra Singh, aka the Waterman of India, founded Tarun Bharat Sangh TBS with one conviction: water crisis could not be solved by government but by the villagers themselves. At the time when official schemes promised big dams, yet villages remained thirsty. But TBS saw an opportunity where collective will could work miracles. So, they restored johards, anicuts and ponds. They insisted on a 25% community contribution, and they nurtured a cadre of water warriors. And the outcome will surprise you. Over 15,000 water structures now harvest more than 100 billion liters of rainwater annually. Between 20 to 25 rivers once declared dead, like the Aravari and the Ruparel, now flow perennially. And more than 1 million families escaped water insecurity, especially in areas like Chambal. So what's the lesson we learn here? True climate action does not trickle down from policies, only from policies, but it springs up where people reclaim their future. So ladies and gentlemen, as we have seen throughout this presentation, that communities are not just a part of climate solution, they are the solution. Let's watch it from the expert himself. As I stand here today, I'm reminded of my school days when Environment Day meant poems and articles. In class 8, I wrote a 6-line poem. What I felt then, I believe even more strongly today. Science is all around. Knowledge has spread. But why people are still cutting trees for their bread? And when communities join hand in hand, together we can heal our precious land. Thank you so much, NIT Jamshedpur, and you all for being a lovely audience.